last night, Alex, what was this thing called? A calm down. Milo, you were spreading your madness into the great Midwest. What happened? People were not calm. They were kind of. How did you get them all worked up even before the thing started?
Well, last week, of course, I had a very well-received talk at Rutgers, and by well-received, I mean there were feminist protesters smearing themselves with fake blood, Black Lives Matter, chanting away, all because I was saying that academic freedom is probably a good thing. We should interrogate, all sorts of different arguments and listen to what everybody has to say. So I did the same thing last night. I gave a joint lecture on feminism called Calm Down with Christina Hoff Sommers from the American Enterprise Institute. And, of course, at some point, there are klaxons and bell horns and all sorts of weird and wonderful noises from the auditorium and people yelling, "You're an asshole." And,
but hold on. I thought these people were all about free speech and open dialogue and everything like that. Why do they have klaxons and why are they trying to shout you down?
Well, the left that embraced free speech and dissidence and and thumbing their nose to the establishment, the left that enjoyed having fun exploring new ideas is very much a thing of the past. That was the left of the 60s, the 70s, the sort of campus radicals. The left today doesn't like free speech very much. The left today prefers to shout down, to play the man, not the ball, to avoid anything it finds inconvenient. But unfortunately, much of the world is inconvenient to the modern progressive left because it simply doesn't conform to the reality they like to describe. Most of what they say about race, most of what they say about gender, most of what they say about the economy just doesn't bear scrutiny. So you start to talk a little bit about some of these things. And last night we spoke about feminism and sort of the excesses of the modern feminist movement, the way in which it can very often seem like little more than man-hating. And, of course, they don't like that very much. And they don't have arguments to present to you. What they instead want to do is just shout you down, call you a bigot, say, get this hate speech off our campus. Everywhere I'm going on this tour so far just seems to generate this sort of pandemonium. But it demonstrates our point very well. It demonstrates that modern feminism has spiraled out of control, become a sort of dead dogma that is more to do with man-hating than it is equality.
Yeah, Milo, I timed it. It took 6 minutes for the first air horn to go off to try to disrupt what you're saying. And I looked up immediately because I had a stopwatch going, and it wasn't 6 minutes. Which is the and we spoke about this on the Saturday program last week because Sirius XM puts us on 7 days a week. As crazy as that may seem, ladies and gentlemen, but we're very grateful for it. And we talked about how this ends up just making your point even better because it gives you the moral high ground because it's anti-free speech. They purport to be the progressives here and we're the regressives. Yet you literally, they tried to prevent people from hearing you by playing loud air horns, multiple, not just one person. It was a whole section of the room had staked it out, timed it, and everyone jumps in there and police had to escort some of them out. First of all, congratulations on generating that sort of drama. I know you fancy that sort of thing, but how stupid is this on their part that it just gives you everything you want?
Well, it's very strategically stupid. I mean, if they wanted me to go away quietly, the smart thing to do would be to give me a media blackout, would be to do what the progressive left often does with conservatives it doesn't like, which is pretend they don't exist. But when you get to a certain point, you get to a certain sort of notoriety or stature, you bring in audiences of a certain size, they try different tactics. Strategically, this is incredibly stupid. What happened at Rutgers, last week was that these protesters made such a theatrical spectacle of themselves that I ended up talking about it on Fox News. Hundreds of thousands of people watched the videos online. We wrote loads of stuff about it at Breitbart News. The guy who invited me to Rutgers wrote a great op-ed for Breitbart about it. In the end, probably millions of Americans got to hear about my talk.
But they have to correct me if I'm wrong, Milo. But they got to shut you down because you're an existential threat. And here's the reason: you're not some old angry white guy. Right, that they can say, look, the man haters are gonna come in there. You're an incredibly hip, dandy. You're a gay male. But you're a traditionalist. You're kind of an existential threat to the system. They've got to shut you down, right? They can't have
Steve. Milo was wearing a fuchsia scarf while he walked out over his suit jacket.
I don't even talk about that.
Just so your listeners don't think I'm a total homo, I think I'm allowed to call myself that. I may have been in a little silk Louis Vuitton number, but my tie was from the Donald J. Trump signature collection.
Don't check what country it's made in.
Okay, I want to pivot. I
didn't.
I want to pivot for a second and talk about some other issues here. We got to get you on. Mary Chastain's going to come on about this Carrier air conditioning fiasco in Indianapolis in a minute. Facebook. One of your favorite guys, Zuckerberg's been trying to cut a deal with Merkel in Germany to shut down any type of stuff, comment section on Facebook about this Muslim invasion migrant fiasco in Germany. In Scotland the other day, they actually I believe the police arrested a guy for comments. That's when it starts getting from being, an entertaining evening with Milo about free speech to a police state. I mean, this thing is deadly serious, is it not, Milo?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're all culture warriors. We enjoy picking fights. Some of this stuff is illuminating and enjoyable. Some of this stuff is just fun frippery. There's something very serious going on when Facebook is teaming up with governments to enlarge the definition of hate speech to include perfectly respectable concerns and normal opinions held by millions of people, rebranding that as some kind of like abuse or harassment or hate speech or some other kind of big scary word, and then banning it from the internet. These private companies teaming up with government to do this kind of stuff from underneath us on platforms that we all assume are free and open places we can go and discuss whatever we want with our friends. This is a kind of Orwellian nightmare. This is a kind of genuine threat to the ability we have to communicate honestly and openly with the people that we love, with people we know, people we don't know. These platforms teaming up with left-wing governments to redefine words and to ban certain kinds of perfectly
and not just ban now. To actually arrest. They actually have the police arrest a guy, and the police said, hey, he was saying hurtful things on Facebook. Now, talk about your investigation of Twitter. What's this whole thing with shadow? Your drill down on Twitter has got the Twitter corporate hierarchy in complete panic mode, does it not, sir?
Well, quite right, too, because I am telling people about Twitter what Twitter doesn't really want people to know, which is that it is now outright, openly going after conservatives. It is using a variety of sneaky, slimy tactics to reduce the exposure of its users to conservative points of view, to delegitimize, to ridicule, and to disempower conservative voices. One of the latest things we discovered was one of my sources in Silicon Valley told me, and I had this confirmed from somebody in Twitter, from somebody within the company in Twitter, that they have this thing where it's called shadow banning. And what that basically means is a user can post a status update, share information, and they think it's been published to the world, except other people never get to see it. So it's sort of silently hidden. Now on Twitter, what that means is you can pick who to follow, and those people can tweet, but in your timeline, where you go, you log in and you check what everybody's saying, their messages will simply never appear. Twitter started doing that to me and to a lot of other conservative voices, a lot of people involved in the sort of online digital culture wars. And we called them on it, and we found out that they were doing this, and we've published that they're doing this, and there's a lot more to come on the Twitter issue as well. It's not something we're ever going to let go, because Twitter it always likes to speak of itself in terms of being a public utility, of being, the free speech wing of the free speech party. That's a lie. They're not. They're only a free speech party if you're a progressive. You can say whatever you want if you have the right social justice opinions. You can swear, you can threaten people, you can do whatever you want, provided you have the right politics. But the minute you step out of line as a conservative, they come down on you like a ton of bricks, ban your account, take your verified check away, do whatever it is that they need to do to delegitimize and trivialize and hide you away from the rest of the world. And this is a platform that is dying. The company is dying.
Okay, I want to make sure we got something here, Milo, and Alex, please jump in. And this revolt against the establishment, whether you're for Ted Cruz or Dr. Ben Carson or Donald Trump or even part of Bernie Sanders, would not exist if not for new media. The website set up by Andrew Breitbart, who worked 14 years as Matt Drudge's deputy editor underneath Matt Drudge, and learned new media, and the technologies of Facebook and Twitter. Twitter has been called many times a conservative medium. The reason they're shutting these down is not that they're getting more progressive, is that these technologies have disintermediated not just legacy media. They've disintermediated the ability to organize, what the left always had with community organizations. This movement that Milo is at the tip of the spear of, trust me, and this is not tinfoil hat. This is not crazy stuff you see on conspiracy sites. This is brutal, hard corporate reality. They are making a major move in Europe where they have this crisis. And trust me, in Germany, they're looking to shut it down. In Scotland, they're arresting people. This thing that Milo's exposed on Twitter is absolutely mind-blowing. Now, I want to pivot for a second, Milo, to something that gets very complicated between people with civil libertarians and this whole issue we're talking about in national security, and that's the Apple situation. And Alex, I want you to jump in here. Milo, this thing about cracking. First off, it's got to be very serious of a foreign intelligence source or something that those phones can't be cracked by our best and the brightest, that you've got to actually go to Apple. Now, what do you believe of this whole Apple situation with getting into the terrorist phones and being able to unlock them so we can actually get there? What is your position on that, or your initial thoughts? Because it's getting to be a throwdown, even with Ted Cruz, who's a big civil libertarian and constitutionalist, saying, hey, it's got to happen. And then, Alex, I want you to jump in.
I think a lot of people accept that there have to be some suspensions of our usual principles to keep us safe from terrorism. And Islamic terrorism is one of those things where I think most citizens are prepared to accept some degree of intrusion into their private lives or some degree of compromise in their freedom to stop 9/11 happening again. Now, nobody sincerely believes that Apple doesn't have a way into its own devices. Nobody seriously believes they wouldn't do that if they wouldn't build that in. But they like to posture in public about protecting their customers' data. I think even, as you say, even politicians like Ted Cruz are now saying, look, we probably need to have this mechanism because although the Paris attacks might not have included encrypted data, might not have included much sophisticated technology, we know that other terrorist attacks have. And I suppose I differ with some sort of hardline libertarians and some of the people at Breitbart Tech, like my colleague Alan Bakari, who's pretty hardline on keeping customer data safe at all costs. I differ with them slightly because living in Europe, seeing the 7/7 bombings in London, the Paris killings just recently, if intelligence services need these backdoor sort of ways into our devices, and they're going to use them at least basically judiciously, I can't really think of a compelling objection.
Let me, before I pivot to Alex, I just want to go back to something you said. You believe Apple is posturing for the public that they can't. You think that's pure posturing. There's no doubt because you're head of our tech site, and I know although not a programmer, you're very tech savvy. You think that's pure posturing.
Well, I talk to hackers all the time, and these things that you hear all the time, there's no way through encryption, there's no way in these devices, it's not technologically possible. That's never true. There's always ways in. There's always ways to build in, trapdoors and backdoors and things that people are never going to see, whether it's in encryption services or any other kind of service built by any corporation. It's just never true. And Apple under Tim Cook has made a lot of specific claims about not being interested in its customers' data. So Tim Cook will say, we don't care about your data. We just want to sell you devices, right? We want to sell you a nice phone, nice laptop, nice watch. The hardware and software we'll build together. We'll build your beautiful device. We don't care what you do with it. We don't care about your data, and we're not going to give it to anybody else. Well, that can only be true to a point because ultimately this data is valuable to Apple. They certainly do use location data and things like that. So they never quite tell you the truth about that in the first place. But secondly, the claims they make about encryption, all of these technology companies slightly fib or at least gloss over the truth when they say there's absolutely no way that your data could ever be retrieved when it's encrypted.
Mr. Alex Marlow, your thoughts? Commentary.
Yeah, Milo, do you really think it's about encryption, or do you think it's about something else? Like, because Apple is so cagey about their technology, do you think it's just about not giving people access to? I hate to be cynical here, but even if that means we don't figure out what key details in a terror attack on our soil, I mean, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just Apple being hardline because they don't want there to be any access to their technology because they're being protective of their intellectual property.
Bingo.
I think it's certainly part of it. People sometimes forget how big, how powerful, and how rich Apple is because there's.
I don't. Not me.
Well, sure. But because there's so much good feeling toward Apple, people feel nice about the company. They like it. They like Apple's products. Apple doesn't generally get into trouble for trust or security violations, except it's, sometimes its cloud services can be a bit ropey. It's not the constant subject of stories about privacy and about data and about free speech in the way that Facebook and Twitter are. So it doesn't have that sort of reputation. I think it gets a big free pass. And it's got a big free pass for a variety of reasons in its history, also through clever choice of CEO. Steve Jobs got a free pass because of his personality and his visionary product brain. Tim Cook got a free pass before he came out as gay. Probably the most underreported on CEO in America's history. If you think about how powerful he is and the fact that has there ever been a serious big profile of Tim Cook? Do we even know very much about this man? No. Why? Because reporters are scared of going near the gay thing. Apple's executives have been some of the most secretive and underreported on people in American corporate history relative to their power. And so the company's been the same too, because most people like it. Most people like Apple. As a result, the company's been able, despite its size and its power, to sort of get away with murder without really being subject to the same level of scrutiny that other technology companies are. So,
do you think this also do you also think this plays into this nationalist, this Trump movement, this nationalist movement versus global corporatists, the party of Davos, that when they look around, what their market cap now is $250 billion, what's $250 billion. They're the second biggest market cap on the New York, maybe the biggest market cap on NASDAQ. That their loyalties lie to a global network and not just to their home country.
Well, I think that's true of all these technology companies. You talk about Facebook being touchy about breasts, for instance. It started sort of censoring nipples on its network. Well, yeah, but think about where Facebook's customers actually are. You look at Twitter, which seems to give terrorists a bit of a free ride, but bans you if you take the mickey out of feminists. Well, a Saudi prince owns most of it. He owns more than Jack Dorsey does. You start to work out, how.
By the way, a Saudi prince that's virulently anti-Donald Trump, right, actually tweets out, hey, Donald Trump's not worthy to be president of the United States. That's Prince Al-Walid, right?
Yeah, it is. You start to dig into this stuff and you realize that actually it's not all about us anymore, because these companies have hundreds of millions, if not, billions of customers in Apple's case, spread all over the world. They have concerns that stretch way beyond, the priorities of the average American voter. These companies, as you correctly say, have globalized concerns very often of the Davos set.
Hey, Alex, we're pressed for time. We got Ambassador Bolton come on. Milo, give people a quick rundown of the rest of your tour and what else is going on.
Well, I'm heading over to Mexico today. I'm going to be speaking in Acapulco. Then when I get back,
are you meeting? Are you and the Pope? You having an audience with the Pope, or is he already gone? Alex, Alex, you set that up? Is Milo meeting with the Pope?
Steve, I was trying to keep this under wraps in terms of I don't want the media attention from Milo. The Pope will bring in a few people, but Milo will get so many people out there. I don't want it to get.
But the Pope's not. But the Pope can the Pope speak over the klaxon horns? I mean, is he used to having disruptions?
No.
Milo brings his own.
The Pope goes medieval on you on that stuff. You saw him yesterday.
I saw that. I saw he was not happy. That was not a happy Pope. Milo, so you're going to so you're going to Acapulco. Alex, how come we don't get this tour, the Minneapolis Acapulco? Of course, you did have to go to Rutgers. Okay, so
I've been lobbying.
I like New Jersey. You stop being
but I'm sequestered in Washington until the Republicans have a nominee. So I'm particularly jealous.
Milo, we got to jump, brother, but fantastic. You're lighting the hair on fire all across the country. You'll see stories up on Milo today on the site. Fantastic job.
Thanks so much, guys. Cheers.
Milo Yiannopoulos.